Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. My name is Bree Buonomo. Hi if you're new here, or hey if you've been here before. I am so excited because it is officially that time of year when I get to talk about all of the bookish things throughout 2024 and things to look forward to in 2025. And while I might be limiting some of the content from what I did last year because I really went all out last year in Bookmas, I still wanted to talk about a few things like my favorite books of the year and what I am excited to read for 2025. And the latter is actually what we're going to talk about today. So I'm super excited to share with you all the books that I cannot wait to read in 2025. So I'm going to try to go in order of release date and then sum it up with books that are just kind of announced but don't have an official date yet. The first book I can't wait to get to is Adrift and Currents, Clean and Clear by Shannon McGuire. This is, I think, the 10th book in the Wayward children's series, and it follows a bunch of children who find themselves in magical worlds or are kind of recovering from being in a magical world and then returning to ours. This one seems to have a lot of like turtles in aquatic life, and I'm really excited for that. And I just love the series so much. It tends to be something I always look forward to in January every year. Next on my list is a book that comes out on January 14th, and I'm excited by the title and cover of this. And even though I have not read this author before, they are kind of up and coming. They have quite a big following now. And the author is Grady Hendrix, and that would be his book, Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. That's pretty much all I need to know. I love witches and witchcraft stories, so I am excited by the premise, and if I get to it in the new year, it would probably be my first Grady Hendrix book I will read. And I hear a lot of good things about his work in recent years, so I'm excited to dive in. Next, on February 11th, we have Emily Wilde's Compendium for Lost Tales by Heather Fawcett. I have been obsessed with this series. I was so happy when my book club picked it to read earlier this year, and right after we finished book one, I went ahead and started reading book two, and so far I've just been absolutely obsessed with Emily and Wendell. This is a story where a human woman, Emily, who is a professor, and her colleague, Wendell, who may also be something of an otherworldly creature, are kind of going on all these adventures, and Emily is documenting their travels in a form of a diary, but also like it's doing research for all of her books. So I am excited to see this book. It's the third book in the series and possibly the finale, so absolutely thrilled either way. I can't wait to see what Emily and Wendell get up to. Then we have two books that come out on March 18th that have piqued my interest. The first one, which I feel like should be no surprise if you guys have been on my channel forever, but it's Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. I cannot believe we're actually getting a Hamish story. It seems pretty dang wild that it's happening, but as I always feel, Suzanne Collins only writes books when she has something to say, and given the political climate of our United States currently, I feel like this is gonna have a very timely feel to it. Because the last book, where it followed snow, I read that during 2020 when the world was going to shit the first time, and I felt like there was a lot of things that were mirrored in real life from in the book, and it was a very heavy read at that time. So I'm kind of expecting something similar to happen with Sunrise on the Reaping, but I am obsessed with Suzanne Collins. She is probably my favorite current day author. But also, one of my favorite authors to date is also putting out a book on the 18th, and that is Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. This is a nonfiction book, and I actually read his Anthropocene Reviewed last year, and I found it such like a lovely nugget of interesting stories and wisdom. And I feel like this one's going to have similar vibes, and I really hope that John Green narrates the audiobook, because I think like I would like it during that experience more than if I read it physically. So either way, I'm gonna probably add that to my shelf and get the audio, and I am gonna start to try to use Libro FM more because that benefits independent bookstores, and that will be my go-to for getting that audiobook. And then on March 25th, this is a question mark one for me. I am not sure if I will absolutely get into this book or not. I may borrow it from the library, but it's Blood on Her Tongue by Johanna van Veen. I have not read a novel from this author before. I actually just very recently watched a Books and Lala video where she mentions this author. I believe she had just read the first chapter of this author's book. I don't know if it's her debut or not, but she's a newer author to me and I have never heard of her before. But it sounds like it's a vampire novel. And as you guys know, I have never gotten out of my vampire phase. So I don't know anything else about it. It doesn't explicitly state that it's vampires, but I think it's heavily implied. And there are two sisters, and one sister starts to fall deathly ill, but then suddenly her illness starts to have a particular hunger associated with it. So I am very excited to maybe try that, and I may do library first just to see if the author is for me before I commit to buying. And then we get into April. So on April 1st, we have from the Diary of Agnes Jaeger, The Secrets of Silverleaf Academy by Veronica King. I am absolutely biased because this is one of my author friends and I also was a critique partner for this project. So, you know, I'm gonna have to, I will disclaim that I'm really excited for this for personal reasons because I can't wait to see this book fully fleshed out. But I am honestly just excited by the premise. It is a middle grade novel set in an academic setting, and we have rich mythology, a lot of Appalachian lore, and a lot of secretive things in the academy. And I'm really excited. I have not read the finished product at this point in time, but I am excited to see that fully fleshed out. Then on April 10th, hopefully, I'm going to put an asterisk on this one just because this publication date has been moved back so many times, like so many times, that I am unsure if it is going to happen. But right now, the publisher says April 10th, and I have waited 5 years for this sequel, and it is The Voice of the Wretched by Kester Grant. The Court of Miracles was one of my favorite books of 2020. I think I might have actually said it was my favorite book of 2020. I would have to reread this, but I got an early copy of this through NetGalley, and I was just so sucked into this novel when I read it. And I was obsessed. Like I went out and bought it when it came out. Like I don't do that very often, to be honest. Like I really have to love an arc in order to buy the physical copy. Because sometimes I'm like, that was enough. I don't need to reread it. I loved it. But then I don't know what happened. Kester Grant is a very private author. There is not much of a social media trace. Even though she does have social media, she doesn't post a lot about it. But I have been seeing more recently that she's been posting updates and getting through her novel edits. So I'm hopeful that maybe the sequel will actually come because I need it. I've been waiting very, very patiently for it. But yeah, it's basically a Jungle Book meets Les Mis. And I thought it was just a very fresh and interesting take. And for a young adult novel, it is a very, very different and unique novel where you are following these kids in the French court, but it's kind of like the French underground, and like an uprising is happening, but there's a lot of things underneath the surface, and our main character goes through a lot of trauma and ends up being kind of in these thieves guild where she uses her assets to her advantage to make a name for herself, but she's also she has her faults, and she also isn't perfect. So that kind of stirs up a lot of problems for her throughout the novel. So I really want to see where these characters go, and I hope that if and when I can pre-order it, that will then let me get the chance and opportunity to reread the first book. And then on April 22nd, we have A Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. This is a rom-com, and Emily Henry has been chugging these things out like nobody's business. And I haven't read the last 2 books she published because I kind of took a little break after I was like binging all of them. And I do feel like sometimes her characters are very similar in voice. But the reason I'm really excited about this one is because this is about 2 writers entering the same writing competition. And as somebody who has a rom-com based about two writers. I am always looking for books to comp that book to. And this will be Emily Henry's second author-ish book where she's written other times about like authors writing. And maybe this will inspire me to go back and edit my rom-com so I could pitch it to agents next year. But yeah, I'm excited about it. That's all I know so far, but I will likely read this one pretty soon. And then we only have one book in May that I'm super excited for right now. And this is because I believe this is the author's first full-length novel. I might be wrong, but I've only read her novellas. And that would be Emily Tesh's The Incandescent. All I saw was that this is compared to the Scalbelman series by Naomi Novik. I loved the first two books of that series. Specifically, the first one was like up my alley completely. And it does seem to be like a witchcraft wizarding type of boarding school story. And I'm a sucker for them. I don't care. I do love a good boarding school with magic. And I love Emily Tesh's writing style. I read her novella, which was her debut, and that was Silver in the Wood. And I thought that was a beautiful story. I loved her writing. I did read the sequel as well. So I think like this book will be something I will enjoy. In June, on June 10th, we have Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. V.E. Schwab is another author that I adore. Even though not all of her books are exactly 5 stars in my opinion, I love her ideas. I feel like she's a brilliant wordsmith, and I think her ideas are always just so unique and interesting. And I could tell that she has a lot of heart and commitment into the stories that she writes. So I don't even care. I don't know what this story is about. I have no idea. I'm just going to buy it. I actually have already pre-ordered it. I'm just so excited. The other thing that really got me to pre-order this immediately is that she is doing a full-on like handwritten signature for all of the first edition books. So I don't know if that's US only or not, but I had to get one because I need it. I just need it. That's all. For reasons. Okay, then the rest of these I'm going to go through pretty quickly because these are all set to debut in the fall of 2025, if not the winter of 2025, but none of these have official release dates yet. So I am excited to read Wallace Kinney's follow-up to A Dark and Secret Magic. The title is a working title, and I honestly can't even remember what the working title is, but she recently said in a YouTube video that it likely will not stay that way, but she needed something for the announcement. So I am excited though. It is a Yuletide witchy story, and that's just, again, right up my alley. Witchcraft, Yuletide, it sounds like a perfect winter read. This one, again, has no official date, but I really enjoyed The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty. And the second book of that series is slated to come out in fall of 2025. So I hope that we will get some news on that soon. Local Heavens by K.M. Fiardo. I'm so sorry, Chris, if I butchered your name. I don't think you watch me, and I don't think you know who I am. But I absolutely butchered your last name, and I'm so sorry. But I've been following Chris on YouTube for a bit of time now, and I think her debut absolutely sounds like it's something up my alley. It's a literary sci-fi novel, and she definitely documents like her journey for that. So I will leave her link down below if you're interested, as well as Wallis. I will leave her channel link down below. You should go give them some love. But I love sci-fi and I love literary sci-fi. As I've been finding out, I've been reading more of that genre lately. And I like this cyberpunk-esque that she's been describing. So I'm here for it. I can't wait. As soon as I can pre-order it, I will. And then I guess all of the books I'm excited for are all of my fellow Authortubers, because Lindsay Puckett's Bitter Bones is also slated for a fall of 2025 release. And I'm just so excited. Look at all my Authortuber friends. Well, some of them don't know me, but you know what I mean. I'm just excited to see a lot of Authortubers really breaking into the traditional publishing world, because as somebody whose goal is to do that, I know how hard and exhausting it can be. And it's just so exciting and refreshing to see it happening for so many people. So those are all the books that have like somewhat of a release date or a planned release date in 2025. The last one I feel like I put on my to be read every year so far, And I do know that the author has extensive medical issues, and that has prevented her from really getting farther in her edits and making this last book possible. But I have been waiting for Rain by Cora Carmack for many, many years. I just thought it was a wonderful story. It was an interesting premise with, like, it was romantasy. It is a romantasy. This came out before romantasies, like that word, became its own genre. But it is a romantasy, and I always felt like the romance was done very well. It never felt super rushed, but it didn't feel super slow. Cora is primarily a romance writer, so this like jump to a romantasy setting was done really well. But the third book has been on hold for quite some time because of the author's health issues. And she did say in a recent newsletter that things are starting to look promising and she is making progress and was hoping to get some good news soon. But again, there's no official release date because we don't actually know what's happening. But I am hopeful and maybe spreading some good positive vibes for the author. Maybe we will get somewhere in 2025. So those are all the books that I am super excited to read in the new year. Let me know down below what books you're excited for, and if there's any on my list that look or sound interesting to you. I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts. And yeah, until next time, I'll see you then. Bye.